Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Time Out with Derek and Joe. For Joe Azalina, I am Derek Cano. Thank you, as always, for taking time out of your day to spend some time with us. And once again, we welcome back Dan Villanti to the show. Welcome back, Dan.
How are you guys?
Happy to have you.
Brother.
And Joe, what are we talking about in episode 38?
Well, I think our audience is going to be very, very enthralled with this episode because we have some interesting topics around Major League Baseball as we're going into, I want to say for some team series number 4, maybe starting tonight with the weekend just ending. We're going to talk standings. We're going to talk overreactions. We're going to get into some hot topics, some headlines, and just a whole gamut of things. I'm pretty excited for this episode. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, and yeah, I guess we're 10 games into the season or so, 10 days into the season. So we're just going to dive right in to a couple of the hot topics around Major League Baseball and get a little roundtable going. First off, we had our first no-hitter, and it came out of, I believe, Texas is where the game was actually played, between the San Diego Padres and the Texas Rangers. And no, it was not Yu Darvish. No, it was not Blake Snell. It was former Pirates great Joe Musgrove, who went out and threw 10 strikeouts in 112 pitches, as I mentioned, against the Texas Rangers. Unfortunately, his perfect game was ruined by a hit by pitch on Joey Gallo. Dan, we'll start with you. Did you get to see any of the game? And are we a little surprised that Joe Musgrove was the first guy to throw the no-hitter this year?
Yeah, I mean, I did watch it. I'm a avid MLB TV subscriber. I usually put on various games throughout the year. So when I saw about the 7th inning, that's when I tuned in. Not to get into the overreactions too soon, but first thing that came to my mind is probably the most overseen free agent pickup that, Darvish got all the headlines. Snell was the first one for San Diego, and that was, a huge deal. Musgrove kind of under the radar, was going to be thrown into this number 3 role. They still have Chris Paddock. So, he was always supposed to be, they have, 3 other prospects who are supposed to be the next guy. Then Musgrove kind of comes in and, first start looks great. Second start throws a no-hitter. So, change of scene seems to be pretty good for him so far.
And Joe, it was the Texas Rangers who we pretty much bashed in the AL West preview, but hey, no hitter nonetheless, right?
Yeah, I didn't see any of the game, but when I woke up that next morning and I saw the Padres celebrating on one of the websites I was looking at, I'm like, oh Lord, I'm like, it already happened this year. But he's really a good pitcher, and which is interesting about him is that, and I looked this up, that he is from the state of California, so that's kind of cool. He goes back home and he throws a no hitter in one of his first outings. If it wasn't his first, maybe his second. I'm not too sure about that. He struck out 10 batters in 112 pitches. That's a lot of pitches in one of your first outings. And you said about Gallo, he was the only base runner. You didn't hear a lot about Musgrove early in his career. He's still fairly young, but he pitched for Houston and Pittsburgh, where you just kind of go to die in Major League Baseball. But now in San Diego, the guy's got a chance to win, so I'm happy for him. And this is really cool we always see no hitters like later in the year, right? Usually even the second half of the season. Not so much in April. This was a cool thing. I want to know the last no hitter that was pitched in April. I know I just put out a question that maybe we won't get answered today, but it really is cool.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Well, and that was, I believe, the only team, or I know San Diego never had a no-hitter before. So, and I'm trying to look up quick. Are they the only team who hasn't had one yet? I can't really find it off the top of my head, but I'll just throw out there. Who do we have do we have another no-hitter this year? Who do we think it is? Joe?
Oh, boy. I mean, I'm going to go out on a limb and say maybe Maybe it's a Los Angeles Dodgers
Win,
pitch.
win-win. If you get it right, you look great. If you get it wrong, well, of course you didn't get it right. So,
I'm gonna say Bueller because he's come on the scene real fast and he's a guy. And I know that's like not really a great answer because he's one of the best pitchers really in baseball. But I don't know. The Dodgers are gonna win a lot of games. We know that. So you feel like they might have the shot to face one of the worst teams in their division, and this guy has a chance at one. He's got lights out stuff. So I go Walker Bueller for I know a chalk prediction. Sorry.
What do you think, Dan?
Bound to happen. Like he's just give me the best pitcher on a good team. I'll take DeGrom every day of the week.
I agree. I'm done thinking
man.
it's Garrett Cole anymore. I'm done.
American League, the American League is just so much harder.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just. I think that's another thing you'll see is eventually with the DH rule, the National League is probably more optimistic for a no hitter. Give me the best guy.
Yeah, DeGrom is a beast. He's. I'll be pulling my hair out in a couple days.
I'll stick with my preseason. For those that missed our preseason picks, jump a few back, and it's out there. I'll go with my preseason NL Cy Young winner. I'm going to go with Jack Flaherty. I think that maybe the Cubs are already struggling offensively, average-wise. I know they're still winning games, but and then the Pirates are out there. So I think that he has a pretty good shot to win one, to get a no-hitter. Next hot topic here, which was pretty popular topic in the Azalina household, I'm sure. Controversial Mets win the other day, I should say. For those that missed it, the Mets won on a hit by pitch, but technically Michael Conforto leaned over the plate and it was actually a strike. And the rule says that even if you get hit, if it's actually a called strike, doesn't matter, it's a strike. But the umpire says afterwards that he missed it. Doesn't matter. Mets win. Joe, let's start with you this time. What were your reactions to that? I know your brother was not a huge fan of that. What ultimately happened there either.
All right. Well, first of all, I have nothing against Michael Conforto. He's a good player. I've always said that. I actually like him as a player. It looks bad just because this would not look bad if it was in the middle of a game, right? It's because it's the end of the game. The umpire apparently was going to call strike 3. I think it was 2 strikes on him.
Yeah.
And that was a controversy. I will say this though, and this is going to be funny coming from me, but Chase Utley did it all the time. Like he would lean into pitches all the time back in the day. I mean, I would sit there and say, oh my God. I mean, these pitchers probably aren't trying to hit him and he gets on base because he leans his elbow or maybe leans his leg. He got hit in the leg a lot. But actually my principal at school is a big Mets fan and he actually called it Bush League. So I thought that was interesting. He's from Queens. Like he's very, very diehard Mets fan. I will say this. I just think that it's one game. Now he does it again. I think then we got an issue. But right now, I'm not gonna go nuts about it. I mean, it is what it is.
Dan, quick thoughts.
I think more so for me is, that was the first one. Last night being the second one. We're getting games ended very controversially, and we have replay. Like replay was supposed to be the fix. We got to follow the NFL. NBA replay was supposed to be the fix to all this. And now, we're 2 weeks in and we have 2 games that ended on plays that, both times, if replay was used, I know it was used, but, in one of the situations, what are we answering besides the length of the games, which is supposed to be the number one priority, extending due to replay sometimes. So, I mean, I think it really, and one of the other hard parts for me as a baseball fan is you go like last night, you're on Twitter, Trout's tweeting, oh, that's terrible. Major League Baseball players are tweeting. I saw Will Middlebrooks, he tweeted, if you're going to have replay, why are we going to have it? Travis Day Renaud tweet, after the game, this is how it's going to be. Why do we even have it? Like, I think that's kind of the hard part is if we're going to have replay, it's got to be used to affect the winning and losing of a game. And 2 instances that happened in 2 weeks, and probably both times it was wrong. So, I know replay wasn't used really in the hit by pitch situation, but again, it could have.
Yeah, and for those that missed the one last night that we're talking about, that was the Braves and Phillies game where Alec Boehm slid in. I don't think he even slid. That was part of the problem. Just kind of ran, and did he touch home plate? Did he not? Anyway, he was called safe and confirmed safe, I believe. And did he actually touch home plate? Yeah, it was kind of up in the air. So our last headline here, and I mean, we can be pretty quick about that one since they got their destroyed last night after I wrote about this, but one surprise team we can look out for: Cincinnati Reds. They are now 6-3, but they have the highest run differential at, I had it up, plus 20, although that got switched up with the Dodgers in this past day. Best batting average, most home runs, most RBIs, a team that I believe however many innings it was in the divisional series against the Braves couldn't score 1 run. Dan, are we a little surprised that the Reds are jumping off to this hot streak? We know Eugenio Suarez was moved from third base to shortstop in order to give him a little more offensive compensation. What are our thoughts on the Reds real quick?
They remind me of like an NBA team who's going to score 120 a game, but when they get to the playoffs, they look like they can't run an offense, because it's like when, defense actually starts being played, pitching actually starts being like I was going through their lineup. I like Castellanos. I like some of the guys, but at the end of the day, I think it's a hitting friendly ballpark, going to put up a lot of runs, have some home runs. But at the end of the day, when, I know they're leading the division now, they look good. I like Milwaukee in that division because they have better pitching. I just think it comes down to that eventually. I know, we'll get into it, but, fun team to watch. It'd be great to throw them on a game and see some runs. But at the end of the day, I would mark them pretender right now. Watch them score a lot, but, they're going to lose, their fair share of games because I don't think they're pitching strong enough.
And let's not pull the wool over everyone's eyes here. They did start off with the Diamondbacks, and then they played the Pirates, and they did score 27 runs against the Cardinals, which is pretty impressive. But Joe, real quick, do we want to talk about the Reds?
Yeah, the Reds, and Dan made a good point about the pitching not being so good, because after Castillo, Sonny Gray's even hurt right now, so they don't have a lot. But I will say that if guys like Tyler Naquin, who right now is 14 RBIs, and Tucker Barnhart with 7, these guys, Jonathan India, the young prospect, is hitting 379. Some of these guys, if they continue to do what they're doing, which is doubtful, to that degree, I should say. Yeah, and along with their pitching not being good, they gave up Iglesias, the closer now in Anaheim. They're going to have a tough time keeping this up, is what I think. Will they be as bad as the Pirates? Probably not. But I do see a Milwaukee-St. Louis collision in the end. And I do, Dan, I'm right with you, man. The Brewers are really interesting. And I think Woodruff and that crew, and, we'll see it. Yelich, I mean, they got players. So, but the Reds are pretender to me too, I think.
And it is pretty interesting. You think Reds, you think of like Joey Votto. He must be going off now. He's hitting 162. Eugenio Suarez hitting 207. So, yeah, it's those guys, Castellanos, Naquin, India, really hitting well. That will really bring us into our next topic. We kind of answered the question already for the Reds. But let's talk about the current division leaders after the first 10 days or so. And we're going to either label them a fluke or a contender ultimately. We already chalked off the Reds. I think all of us kind of have them as a little bit of a fluke to begin the season. Let's go to the AL East and then Boston Red Sox. Boston right now is leading the division. I believe the Yankees are in last place in the division. Um, Joe, what do we think about the Red Sox? I know in our previews in the beginning of the season, you had them a little bit lower. What do we think we're seeing out of them so far?
Well, I think what we're seeing is JD Martinez is hot. Because he had a big game the other day. Devers and Bogarts, I said it. If they hit, they're going to stay in games. They're going to win some games. They beat up, I know, yesterday on Baltimore, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was a pretty,
Yes.
that's one game, and again, it doesn't tell you a lot. What I want to see from Boston is Chris Sale going to be Chris Sale? That's a huge thing. Can Eovaldi and is it Rodriguez, the pitcher, right?
Yeah.
Thank you. Those guys, can they stay healthy? Is the bullpen going to do any good? I mean, no, Boston's a fluke. I mean, they're just not good enough. I still say it's again a Yankees Rays race. I know the Yankees are struggling, but the Yankees will be fine. The Rays are going to be fine. The Rays actually impressed me yesterday the way they hit the ball. And Baltimore, I still hope Baltimore. They look to be playing better on the road as a 4-2 record right now. Means can do some things, but Dan will talk more about that later. Yeah, no, Boston fluke.
I'll correct myself real quick. Boston's the top of the division at 6-3, and then everyone else, Blue Jays, Rays, Yankees, Orioles, are 4-5. Dan, what do we think? A fluke or contender ultimately for Boston?
Fluke, and I'll be honest. I think what could end up after the first 3 games, I labeled them the most embarrassing franchise in Major League Baseball. I don't know if they won 6 in a row now. Beat Tampa Bay. They swept Tampa Bay. But to be honest, we're talking about the Boston Red Sox. I think that's where, we're not talking about the Orioles. We're not talking about, this small market team. We're talking about a team that had Mookie Betts, who arguably is one of the top 3 players in baseball. JD Martinez. Obviously, we talked about Chris Sale. They have money to spend. Bogarts is one of the top 5 players at his position. And, go down the list. They should perennially be somebody who we're talking about as always a contender. So the fact that we're having a conversation to me just tells me they're a fluke, because if they're not at the top of it, I think, the whole Betts situation to me is just, mind boggling. I mean, you have somebody like that, you make sure he's happy. You do everything you can. You give him more money than LA was willing to give him, and you're able to because you're Boston. But story for another day. But I think Tampa Bay and New York are the best 2 teams. I think at the end of it, I do think the Yankees end up winning the division. Tampa Bay gets in the playoffs, but that's where I would put them right now.
Yeah, and I did have them finishing 3rd, probably right around 500 there somewhere. They have hitting, but yeah, the fact that they didn't put much into the pitching staff is a little disappointing. Especially, Chris Sale will probably be back around June, as Joe mentioned. Nick Pivetta is pitching all right there so far. 2 starts, 3.27 ERA, Joe.
Mental.
So we'll see. Well, yeah, we'll see if the pitching staff holds up. But we'll move on to the AL Central here. Dan, real quick, the Indians are right now in first place of that division at 5-3. Royals and Twins right behind, and then the White Sox and Tigers are cleaning up the division. What about the Indians? What do we think? We know they have the pitching, that's for sure. Shane Bieber, Savali, Plesac, top of the rotation at least.
Yeah, amazingly, Bieber didn't pitch great opening day against the Royals, of all teams. So, it's not like, he's rolling and, it's one of those guys, he's a perennial Cy Young guy, he's just rolling. So good news for them is, their best guy, really isn't responsible for their wins. So, and you got to think Bieber is going to win 15 games, right? So I think the bad news is, though, I still don't think they have the team that can win the division. And oddly, I think it's the White Sox in that division. I really do. I think they're bona fide right now to compete. I think they're willing to go out and get guys. I just think it's still hard though, in my mind, if I'm on the Indians and I look at them, they got rid of their best player. And it's not like they got, somebody to be their best player. So in my mind, how long does that go? Are they willing at the deadline to be buyers? If they just got rid of Lindor, are they really going to be, at the deadline to make that push to really get in? Their off season didn't speak on that. So I don't think it would, go through this season. So I don't think they withstand it. I certainly don't think Kansas City wins that division. I don't think Detroit wins that division. So in reality, I think going through it, I think Chicago probably ends up being the best team. They got to get healthy. I mean, they immediately, Tim Anderson went on the IL after like 3 games. He's, very constant budding star. I think, as they get healthy, especially as they go on, I think that's the team that ends up winning division.
Joe?
Well, we said it in the if you look back to our audience, we said it in our shows with talking about these teams in the divisions. And the one thing we kept saying about Cleveland is who the heck is in their outfield? Like they have like a black pool in their outfield. I know Frenmil Reyes is hitting because I have him in my fantasy team. And I know he's hitting the ball well, but he's not a very good
DH anyway,
but
really. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Because he's a DH. Again, it was going to be Cesar Hernandez, who's not a superstar. Dan made a good point. I wonder if they could maybe trade for Trevor Story. He becomes, I know they got the guys from New York to play shortstop. I'm just wondering, like, does he make sense in Cleveland? Can they even sign him long-term? I don't know. Just a name I thought about when Dan was talking about that, though, to go get somebody. He'd be a guy to get. You'd have to rent him or then sign him. Other than that, guys, I'm not seeing it. I agree. I love the White Sox. I think, and don't get me wrong, Cleveland's pitching is really good.
Minnesota's still really good. I mean, Minnesota's in the division. Like, I mean, Byron Buxton's literally playing like everyone thought he was going to. And I mean, he's hitting with average. He has 5 home runs. So, I mean, can't count them out. But if I had to look on it long term, pitching especially, bullpen, Liam Hendricks coming in the division. He hasn't pitched great, but I mean, I still think he's, one of the better guys. I think it's the White Sox.
I will say, I think I actually had them 4th behind the Royals. I may bump them up a little bit more because their pitching staff just seems to be really talented, at least compared to what the Royals are going to throw out there every day. I like the Royals lineup a lot more, but and I know we mentioned with Joe a couple weeks ago asking if is the face of the franchise on the team anymore. Now that Lindor is gone, is Ramirez that guy? Is Bieber that guy? I guess that's really up in the air to see if either of those really continues to be the face. But we'll move on here to the AL West, who really no surprise. I think we can kind of be a little quick with this one. Astros currently leading the division at 6-3, although tied with the LA Angels at 6-3, Mariners 5-4, and the Oakland Athletics even behind the Rangers at 3-7 currently. I think we'll switch it up a little bit here. The Astros, I think we can all agree, are a contender. There's no doubt about that. Let's talk about the start of the Athletics, actually. 3-7 right now. Pitching staff is struggling, which was supposed to be the strength of that team. Can't really hit. Do we see that turning around, or what do we think there, Dan?
I don't. I'll be honest. I watched them play a couple of times. Chapman, Olsen. I think guys who at one point they thought these could be 3-4 hitters who can be solid enough. You can't hit under the Mendoza line. You know what I mean? Like if you can be competitive, hit 270. 270 is like the old 310. So you hit 270, you have 35 home runs. It's like, hey, these guys are competitive. But I mean, you literally have guys who are hitting 205, 210, 220. Like, I mean, just not competitive. And in a division, I think to your point, the Astros are clearly at the top. I really do think the Angels. I love Rendon. I love when they picked him up because I wanted some help for Trout. Trout's literally playing. He usually gets off to a little bit of a slow start. He's literally tearing it up already. I mean, I hope they make the playoffs. I'm rooting for the Angels because I think more people need to see Mike Trout play. So, I hope it stays this way. But I think those are two of the better teams in the division. I don't see the A's being able to even compete with, scoring runs with those two teams.
Derek, I will say this. I actually had the Astros as a fluke. And the only reason I say that is because I like their hitters, but I'm not sold on the fact that their pitching is that good. I mean, I know Greinke's really good. Look at Valdez. He's still in the IL, and I didn't think that was going to be that long. And then McCullers has been pretty good so far. I don't know. Something about their pitching kind of scares me. I know Javier's been really, I'm not going to say like all together because I know Javier's really good. So I don't want to make myself sound like don't know what I'm talking about when Houston, but I do know this: when you lose guys in the outfield like a George Springer, guys need to step up. And so far, the other guys are Correa, Altuve, and even Michael Brantley, who I keep saying is one of the best underrated hitters in baseball. I just am not sold on Houston, so I just want to say that first. Oakland, Dan said it well. I mean, you can't hit under that, like he said, that line. Like, and Matt Chapman is the guy that was actually being rumored to go to New York, to the Mets, because they need a third base. They thought they really need a third baseman. Matt Chapman would not probably survive in New York if he hit under the Mendoza line. Olsen and Canna, they got a hit. And actually, Dan's right though. If the Angels and the Astros are in the playoffs, well, Oakland, you're missing out because you're not going to be there like last year. And they got to get starting pitching.
I will say with the Astros, Joe, your boy Jake Odorizzi is going to be pitching soon. You talked about him pretty much every episode in the past. But
That's
no,
true.
I really don't like the A's either. I talked about that in our preview, and none of their hitters were projected to hit over 260. And I think they're going to be very streaky. I'm sure their guys are going to get on a roll. They might win 5 games in a row at one point, and then lose 5 games in a row. I think they're going to be a very up and down team, and that's not going to be good enough to stick with the Astros or make the playoffs, in my opinion. I don't think the pitching staff is going to be able to carry them as much as they would like. Really quick here, let's come back to the other one here. Let's go to the AL West and the LA Dodgers leading that division. I think that's a little bit contender as well. I don't think anyone has to say that. How many other teams do you have in that division as being a contender? Between the Padres, they are currently 7-3, Giants 6-3, Diamondbacks 4-6, Rockies 3-7. Joe, how many of those teams do you really think are going to be there at the end with the Dodgers, or is it just going to be really the Padres maybe?
Yeah, I just think it's LA and San Diego. I don't see. I mean, Yastrzemski's already off to a terrible start, by the way, in San Francisco. Other than Johnny Cueto and Gausman, I can't name you another starter in San Francisco's staff. And can't wait for Gabe Kapler to make his return back to Philly. It's going to be fun. And me and my brother will have arguments about it until the cows come home, as they say. But no, it's LA and it's San Diego, and it's pretty much an open and shut case in my eyes. That's how I feel.
Dan, real quick, do you think maybe the Giants slip in there, even though Joe hates the Giants? Or
I think the hard part for the Rockies, Diamondbacks, and Giants is, my personal opinion, the Padres and Dodgers are the 2 best teams. It's not just, I don't think they're just, the 2 best teams in the division. I think it's the 2 best teams in the National League from top to bottom. So, you're playing those teams 36 times for each of those teams. Between, that's tough. I mean, you're getting Snell. You could go to a 6-game in a row series of getting Snell, Buehler, Kershaw. I mean, you could literally go back to back. Darvish. Go through the list. I mean, you can literally have to go through those 6 arms, back to back. So I don't think so. I think each team has a piece or two. One of them may be active in the deadline just to be sellers, because I think that both of those teams have the chance to run away with the division by the break. So that'll be interesting. But yeah, I think when you have the 2 classiest teams in the league, in my opinion, it's going to be really hard for them to compete.
Yeah, I think they might the Giants might start off hot, but I think ultimately having, and I mentioned it in the preview, having Posey play catcher, who probably shouldn't catch anymore. Longoria is at third base, who probably shouldn't be at third base anymore. Crawford, a lot of old players. I think that they'll slow down eventually, and not really compete in the NL West. And that'll bring us to our final division leader and playing a little fluker contender. Let's go on to Joe's Phillies. And now, obviously, the Phillies are at 6-3, leading the division. The Braves 4-5. Both the Mets and the Nationals had some COVID issues, so their original series was canceled. So they're only 2-3. Marlins 1-6 and 2-6 and Nationals 1-5. Joe, tell us about why the Phillies are a contender.
I still believe in 1 and 2 at top of the rotation. Aaron Nola hasn't looked Aaron Nola-esh as much as we wanted to see him, but he's still Aaron Nola. And I like to say that he's at least 1B. Zach Wheeler, that first game was unreal. And I didn't see much of it, but actually Mike did attend it, and he said he's never seen him pitch like that, even in New York. So I thought that was a great start. Now I sit there, and you both know how much, and Dan of course knows how much I watch them. But I'll tell you right now, this team is scary because first of all, we don't have a center fielder. As Roman Quinn comes up to the plate tonight, 1 for 16. As Jim Salisbury said on his podcast today, 1 for 16. It was like 8 strikeouts and hasn't walked once. That's not good. Adam Hazley hasn't won the job, and it might be time to call up Odubel, who at least hits the ball. And again, I don't know if I want that PR nightmare. So that being said, the starting rotation needs to give them innings, or the bullpen is going to be the next one that's going to take a hit. And we all know how that works. So the lineup, I'll say this: Rhys Hoskins has turned out to be. And I was a big Rhys detractor last year. And I'm not just saying I gave up on him. I'm saying he needed to get his swing back to where he was Rhys of driving the ball to everywhere. He's doing it again. He's looking good at E too, by the way. He's looking pretty good up there. I will say, though, as always, Harper and Realmuto got to drive in runs. I don't like to see Bryce Harper bunt. It drives me up a wall. And he did it already this season. It worked that time. But he's a run producer. Drive in runs. And Alec Boehm is going to be special, but, the jury's out on how special. Guys, I'm not trying to be biased. I really am not. I do believe in this team. I'm not sure to what degree, but I'm not going to say they're a fluke. I really don't want to believe that. We'll make it for a long season. But I will say that there's going to be games that they should win, they're going to lose, and hopefully it's not many. If anybody wants to add anything, because I don't want to keep on beating a drum, but, that's.
Go ahead, Dan.
I mean, I agree. If we're playing fluker contender, they're a contender, right? The playoffs are extended. We're not talking the World Series right now. We're saying, are they a contender that, in September, are they in a position where, 30 games in the month of September can give them a season of playoffs or not? So yes, I would say, yeah, they're in there. They're probably one of, 12 or 13 teams who I'd say have a chance that September is going to mean something. I agree, Joe, I agree with you. The only thing that makes me a little concerned is their top 6 guys are so top heavy on relying on them to produce. After that, Segura has to be better than what he is. He's getting paid to be better than what he is, right? So I just think they need their top 6. McCutchen can't get hurt. They can't go. They have to stay healthy. Their top 6 especially. I think I love Realmuto. I'm a much bigger fan of Harper than most. I really do like them. I'm interested to see how active they are to get something else, because I do think they need something else. I'm worried about McCutchen more than anybody else about staying healthy, because I think he just needs to, especially for their team this season. At the end of the day, I would choose Atlanta if you're asking me who I think is going to win the division. The Mets have the best pitcher in the division, which never is an easy thing, because once every 5 days, DeGrom's going out, and he's going to make you competitive in that game. And their offense is better. So, but yes, I think the Phillies are definitely contenders. I think they find a way that they September will mean something. Again, what does that mean? Does that mean that they get in? Everything has to play out. They're going to have new guys on the team. There's going to be injuries to other teams and themselves. So you don't know. But they're a contender enough right now to say, yeah, they're going to be around in September.
I got a good question, though, because you hit on something I've been talking about all off season. And getting a guy like Matt Joyce, I know he's 37 years old, but he's a good bat. Do you think he's already sat McCutchen once. I think it's important that either Adam Hazley, who again you use in center field because Quinn is terrible, but either Hazley or Moniak need to step up and come and literally be that guy when McCutchen sits. Because if you don't get that, you're not just looking for a center fielder come deadline time. You're looking for a guy to put in left field possibly. Do you agree? And how would you do that? You coach baseball. You know how this goes. How many days off does McCutchen need, and what do you think his total playing the games are down the stretch? This is what.
I mean, the big thing is this season more than anything. I mean, you saw it with the Nationals. Nationals already had, after the first weekend of the series, they had 3 doubleheaders set up immediately. So you don't know. I mean, that does need to play a role, though. The longevity of the season in baseball more than any other sport. It's so long. And you have guys who, I mean, you just don't know. I mean, if you have a COVID issue and you're going to roll out, McCutchen, double headers, every other week. I mean, there's somebody's going to have to step up. I mean, but it's every team, so I don't think the Phillies are by any chance, in a position that nobody else is in. But I mean, whether it's Matt Joyce, whether it's, a veteran bat, whether it's someone who can, against a 5th starter can go keep them competitive. Yeah. Like, I don't, he's a professional. Like, he's going to be able to compete.
Right. Give him some minutes. Get McCutchen off his feet. That's all.
I'll call him a contender too. I never really thought that they wouldn't be. I'll go more on the pitching side here. I think it's gone pretty darn well overall, I would say, Matt Moore has a 7 ERA, but
it's all right.
And honestly, if there is a place I think they need to go, it might need to be a lefty back end starter, because I don't think Matt Moore is making it through the season. Chase Anderson pitched well the first time, but you mentioned it. They're going to be led by Nola and Wheeler this entire season. If they can both stay healthy the entire season, they're going to be in it no matter what, because they're going to be in those 2 games at least every time that they're out there. The bullpen's been a little bit better, which is good. Unfortunately, Bradley went down on the IL already. Once in a while, you're going to get a massive blow up like Vince Velasquez throughout there. I was able to watch that one, and boy, oh boy, that was not
unbelievable.
But Alvarado looks good. Kinsler looks pretty good. So, I mean, they made some moves. I think they're going to need more to ultimately have a chance to win the division, but you're always good and have a shot when you have 2 of the 2 best starting pitchers in Major League Baseball. Really,
and Girardi too, right? I was gonna say that real quick.
Yes,
that he's got some of these guys, and Dan, you'd probably agree with me a little bit. Like, you got Gregorius, who's a leader. You got some egos in that locker room. You got Bryce Harper's won an MVP. It sounds like he's a good teammate, but you still have a lot of guys that are really good. So I think Girardi's a little bit more culpable of what this team could be too, because all these guys seem to get along. They're always having fun, and winning does do that. But, they're coming off a tough season last year and 2 years ago. So I think Girardi's another big one. He's only got 2 more years there, including this year. So I want to mention that too. I didn't want to miss that one. So
for those thinking, wow, they took a lot of extra time on the Phillies, didn't they? Well, don't worry. We moved into another segment here.
We have another window.
We were going to be talking about the Phillies anyways. So we wanted to give immediate thoughts on our 3 teams. Obviously, Joe is a Phillies fan. Dan is an Orioles fan. I am a Mariners fan. So we're just going to briefly talk about our thoughts about those teams. We heard about the Phillies. Let's jump to the AL East in the 4-5 Orioles. Dan, give us your immediate reactions so far. What you've seen out of Baltimore?
Well, opening series, Boston, they sweep them.
Yeah.
As a fan, the Orioles have traditionally been very, very good on opening day, which is just, a funny stat for them because traditionally the season doesn't go so well after that. But at the end of the day, I guess there's two ways to look at it. You bring in a young coach, a couple of years ago, you want to remain competitive. So I think in a culture of, teaching guys, especially young guys, how to win and creating that culture, you can't just be in last place all season long and then think, oh, in 3 years, these guys are going to be so seasoned that they're just going to win. Like it doesn't just flip a switch. So I think, in some aspects, it's great seeing, Trey Mancini's back from colon cancer, which is a great story. They have some young guys who are playing, pretty good. Adley Rutschman is not brought up yet, but he's what Matt Wieters was supposed to be in waiting. So, I think there's a lot of optimism, but at the same point, I'll tell you this as a fan, we just talked about this division. The Yankees, the Rays were in the World Series last year. The Yankees are so strong. The Blue Jays made the playoffs last year and have maybe the best young talent, adding George Springer, who hasn't played yet. So, a lot of my mindset is you can only have, Major League Baseball drafts aren't the NBA or the NFL where, you get the 5th pick and you're like, okay, we have the 5th pick, there's all these top prospects. Baseball's so different because you might not be able to pay that guy or, I'll be honest. I was bummed when the Orioles didn't get Spencer Tolson from, 2 years ago, and they're looking and they're it's like, who do we draft and who do we want? Like, I want them to have number 1 pick for the next 5 years and then give us a chance to compete. You know what I mean? But, at the end of the day, I as a fan, I can't say, I watch them. I appreciate, they do play hard. They have guys who are not household names who just play hard. Cedric Mullins is having like this unbelievable start to this season, and he's a leadoff guy and he's hitting over 400. So I mean, there's guys. John Means had 2 good starts. So yeah, I mean, it's a fun team for me to watch because I think they play hard. But at the end of the day, I don't want them to go 500 because they don't need a 15th pick. They need the 5th pick or the 4th pick, or really the 1st pick.
Oh, 5, yeah.
I will say, if I ever find myself watching a Orioles game, or
God bless you,
game the Orioles are in, I do love listening to Gary Thorne. That is
Oh,
one
he's
positive.
He's
So,
a great announcer.
hey,
I love
and
it.
I mean, John Means currently on one of my fantasy teams. He
Oh.
is he looks pretty darn good out there. So there's one positive. I didn't get to see Matt Harvey's start. Did we see anything of what we used to see, or is that pretty much long gone?
No, and honestly, it's one of those things. I'm all about bringing a veteran in who's gonna eat innings and be able to provide some experience for the young guys. That's just not who he is, though. I mean, nothing against Matt Harvey, but he's not any of those. He doesn't check any of those boxes. He's not this veteran who's going to take a bunch of young guys underneath their wing. I don't know the guy personally, but from everything I've heard from New York, that was not the case. Then he doesn't usually stay healthy. So it's not going to be like, this guy's going to eat up 200 innings. You're like, man, so I'll be honest, like I saw it and I wasn't thrilled about he didn't. He wasn't great. He had 2 starts. The first start wasn't terrible. They won the game, so I mean, kept him in the game. He didn't throw 5 innings though. But I mean, yeah, if he stays healthy, sure, eat some innings. But I just don't see that actually happening. So I wasn't too enthralled in that decision.
Yeah, I don't know if Joe, did you have any thoughts? I mean, I know that it's going to be tough with the pitching staff that's out there right now. They have some bats. Not sure when the word is that Adley Rutschman is coming up or if he will be up this year, but yeah.
That's a fun place. I'll tell you right now, that's a really fun place to watch a game. I have a cousin there and we've gone there, and I think Dan, we've been to a game together even back in the day, right? It's a cool place to go, and I really like it in Baltimore. I'll tell you right now, my whole thing is that, and Dan touched on it, like you have John Means at your top of your rotation, and you made a good point earlier off air, you let's just maybe trade him at midseason or towards the deadline because you might get something of substance for him. But also, if you do that, then you have a Harvey. Off the top of my head, I don't know the starters, but I will say this: it's a shame when a team like the Orioles aren't on ESPN. Again, even if they're playing the Yankees, put them on TV. I like to watch Baltimore play. I do like Mountcastle. I know who he is. Chris Davis was hitting home runs a couple years ago, and a lot of them actually. I like to root for Baltimore more for you than anybody, but I do like to root for them. And, I will say that I hope they can get more pitching because I think it will just help them. But you made a great point also. Just get the top pick. Just get that 1 through 5 because
it's crazy to think if you look at some teams around Major League Baseball, Dylan Bundy is like the number one with the Angels now. I mean, he was supposed to be the guy.
Right.
Manny Machado was in Baltimore. He was the best player. He was one of the top players in baseball now. So it's definitely shows the small market teams and what happens quickly. And I think the John Means thing that you said, Joe, that my mentality goes right to Machado. I mean, they had Machado. They weren't going to sign him. They could have had anything they wanted for him. And they got so late in the game where they literally had to take a package of, second tier prospects because it was either nothing or take something from the Dodgers at that point. So, I mean, I hope that doesn't happen with Means. I don't think they're in a position where they're going to ever really compete when Means is really at the top of his game the next, 3 or 4 years. So, I would be totally cool. But again, you don't know what the value is, out there right now for John.
And I agree. I did go to some games in Camden Yards and I really liked Camden Yards. I'm not going to show my phone here, but I do have a picture of Ken Griffey Jr.'s 438-foot home run in Camden Yards in the All-Star game.
That's awesome.
But
that's a sweet.
We'll move on here. Nice segue to my Seattle Mariners. We can be kind of brief with it. No one really cares about the Mariners, but they are currently 5-4, 1 game out of first place. Started off on interleague games with the Giants. They won 2 out of 3 there, and they won the series with the Twins. So they're kind of on a high right now.
Beating Kepler.
And I said before that they're definitely having fun. And you can kind of see it out there. You don't have the Robinson Canoes who don't run out balls. And I mean, I love Nelson Cruz. I'm kind of sad he had to go. He was still hitting home runs. But Taylor Trammell is going to be pretty good, better than I thought he was going to be. I thought he was only going to be more of a 4th outfielder, although he still might because he's not going to be a great average hitter. But as Joe knows, Kyle Lewis is still yet to play. And they're still winning some games. Jared Kelenic has not come up yet, their top prospect. So I think in the future here, there is a lot to look forward to. Pitching wise, I mean, poor James Paxton, man. I love that guy, and I was, even when he went to the Yankees, I was like, man, I hope he does well because I love watching him pitch, but he just can't stay healthy, poor guy. And he's probably going to end up having Tommy John surgery. So yeah, I like Yusei Kikuchi. He's finally, I think, gotten used to the pitching every 5 days kind of thing. And Marco Gonzalez has been not great so far, but he'll get a little bit better. Pitching is not much to look forward to, unfortunately, until a couple young guys come up. But Joe, I don't know if you got to research or see any Mariners games this year, but what were your thoughts?
Well, I'm interested in how Lewis is going to play because he's definitely young with Haniger, who we know can hit. Seager, their lineup is actually, they're missing like a couple pieces, but they're not missing that many. I've always liked JP Crawford, but I am sick of hearing he's going to hit when the guy doesn't hit. And by the way, him and Quinn 1-2 in Renning at one time. So that tells you something. I hope the guy wins a Gold Glove at some point in his career because he can play defense. There's no doubt about it. He's very smooth of the glove. And
who's that? JP Crawford?
Yeah.
He won last year. Yeah, he won a Gold Glove last year.
Of course, him and Hernandez both win last year. They're out of Philly, of course. Well, anyway, no, good. Again, it's kind of like the Orioles, knowing that you're passionate about them. I pull for the Mariners too. And I was always a Griffey guy because one of our best buds was a Griffey guy. Shout out to Chai. But yeah.
And what about Justice Sheffield, right? Like, I mean,
oh yeah, great name.
I'm not saying he's a top of the line guy, but at the end of the day, the Paxton trade was, at that time, that was a big trade for the Yankees, and Sheffield was a big name in their system. So I mean, at what point do you got to sit there and say, hey, are we looking at a number 3 starter? Are we looking at a number 5 starter? Is there a chance that he can gain some confidence and become somebody that they thought he would be a little higher than a 3? So I think, it looks like to me watching him, he's probably like a 3, on a good day. But that's why you got to play the games.
The upside, yeah. What's his real upside?
That's all. I think that's all he is. He doesn't really strike people. He's not going to strike people out. He doesn't have swing and miss stuff. He's gonna have to be that Jamie Moyer type pitcher.
Oh
hit your
boy,
spots. If he misses his spots, that's it. He's done.
He's gonna get hurt.
And I wonder if, I'm not sure what their game plan is. I would have to imagine, because Gonzalez, Kikuchi, Sheffield, Justin Dunn, I think all of them are 3 to 5 starters. So I assume in the next year or two, they have absolutely no money on the books. There's nobody worth anything except for Kyle Seager, who's going to be gone. So
you have to make a move.
They're going to probably try to bring in someone who's a top of the line starter. And then there's a couple young guys they're bringing up. Logan Gilbert, look out for that name when he comes up. He's pretty talented. I hope they finish 500. That would be great, but I'm not really expecting it. But maybe if a team like the A's finish pretty low, that could be a possibility. And that will bring us to one of our little games here that we created. It's going to be called Overreactions. So a brief synopsis. Each of us wrote down 3 overreactions. They could have been based on teams or individual players or whatnot. But based on the first 10 days of the season, this is a complete overreaction in terms of, wow, well, this person is doing that bad right now, so they're going to do this bad at the end of the season. So not necessarily something we think is going to happen, but we made some fun out of it. Well, we'll just go in order here. I have the first one, and then we can go around to see if anyone thinks that could actually happen, or it's a little bit of a stretch. First one I have written down, and Dan might like this one. I got some old school Orioles action in here. The San Diego Padres, I said, are going to have the lowest team ERA in the last 50 years. Currently, their team ERA is 1.78, which is an amazing number even after 10 games. The lowest since the 1972 Baltimore Orioles, who had a 2.54 ERA. Names like Mike Cuellar and Jim Palmer and Dave McNally in the starting rotation. So that's what I threw out there. Dan, is that something that could maybe happen with that rotation, or still a little outlandish?
I mean, you look there. I love their rotation. I think they put Chris Paddock, and I bring him up first because I think they put him in the best position to actually grow. He was thrown into the fire in the playoffs. He did not look good. He's young. I think they wanted him because Tatis, which they paid a lot for Machado. Tatis, is this uber talented superstar. They bring him up. They start getting this feel of winning. So that's kind of like, hey, we needed Paddock at that point to be our guy because that's who they had. Lament if he stays healthy. So, I mean, at the same point though, now they got, we just talked about Musgrove, talk about Snell, talk about Darvish. They have guys who are in position. So I love their rotation. I watch them play more than any other team, including the Orioles, just because, they play at night, real late at night. So it's easy for me. But do I think are they going to have a team ERA, sub 2.6? I don't know. I don't think so. But I'll say this, in today's day and age, baseballs are different. We don't know how that's going to impact everything. And I think that there is a chance that you're going to see less runs. Doesn't always seem in the first, 10 days of the season that it's going to have a large effect, but it's the NL West. Again, we talked about the strength of the division. Obviously, the Dodgers playing them 18 times isn't going to help a team ERA. But I certainly like them as a great team. Not sure if they'll be under the 2.6.
Fair enough. So Joe, my second overreaction is, and we kind of already talked about this one, but that the Red Sox are never going to look back and they are going to take the AL East division after leading the division so far after 9 games. I will say real quick, if that were to happen, you're going to need Chris Sale to come back to be his top of the line number 1. You're going to need, we mentioned Eduardo Rodriguez to come back. He's got to be a very good pitcher. Nick Pivetta, Garrett Richards needs to step up and be a mid-rotation guy. Yeah, that's a lot of ifs, right, Joe?
Yeah, and I don't think their lineup is. I mean, it's good, but Devers is streaky. Bogarts is a really good player. He's phenomenal. But I just no. If this would happen, it would be a wacky year in baseball. If this would, because you're saying the Rays and Yankees would not be playing so well, and I just don't see either of them not playing well. Yankees are going to kind of be streaky, but they're still so good, and they're good everywhere. That's the thing; they're absolutely good everywhere. So, Derek, I say no way.
Why it's an overreaction.
Yeah.
And then we'll ask Dan's opinion here quick on my third one. Now, this one I actually came up with because I watched him in his last start, and man, I thought he looked pretty darn good. Lance McCullers for Houston. He's going to finish as their best starter and top 5 in Cy Young voting. I mean, I watched him in his last start. I believe that was against the Athletics. Looked very good. They're talking about a new pitch he has going, and he always used to be, you think of McCullers, you think of that large curveball, but now he's got even more of like a swerve slider going on as well that looks very good. Dan, is that kind of outlandish, or I don't know if you've seen McCullers recently?
Yeah, I mean, the good news for you, right, is you don't get a 5-year, $85 million extension if the team doesn't believe it. So, I mean, the fact that happened right before the season tells me, hey, they saw something. They wanted to get him locked up. I mean, $15 million a year isn't, chump change. So, they felt very confident in him moving forward as kind of their guy. They have some guys who obviously are hurt, but I don't think it's overly – let's be serious. They have 6 guys who are hitting over 300 right now. They're going to score runs. So, that's half the deal in winning the Cy Young or finishing there is you have a high win percentage. If he goes out and wins 16 to 18 games, he's going to be in the conversation right away. Pitching now, like he deservingly so. So, I mean, is he DeGrom who you're like, hey, I know what I'm getting every night? Not yet. At the same point, nobody else is. So, yeah, I mean, certainly, I don't think it's as crazy as 3 weeks ago or 3 months ago it would have sounded. It definitely seems like Houston was onto something, and I think that contract proved that.
So Joe, let's move on to you and your overreactions.
All right, and if you have comments, please send them to our email or our page because these are a doozy. I feel like some of these. All right, I have Max Scherzer will not win 10 games for the rest of his career. And I kind of said that because I felt like he's hurt a lot and he's getting older. And I hope he doesn't go to a winner again, because if he does, I'm never going to be right on that. But that was the one I have with Max Scherzer. Comments from the panel here?
I still think he's a top arm. He always keeps themselves in the game. I mean, last night he threw a great game against the Dodgers, who have such a good lineup. The Nationals still have a good team. I think I'm not ready to give up on Scherzer. And I'll tell you the one thing I loved about him real quick. His velocity has really not changed. I was doing some research just to see, why that would happen. The guy's been so consistent. He stays in games. Yeah, he's 36, I think. So I get it. But I don't know if he's done yet. I can see him winning 10, 11 games for another 2 or 3 years.
Okay. That's
Yeah. I disagree too. I like Scherzer. Obviously, he has 0 wins so far. They've only have 1 win total. So, but he's pitched well so far. He has a 3.75 ERA. I still like Scherzer. I said in the beginning that I think he was going to be the one to try to carry this rotation. I don't think successfully, because I think that already you have injuries. I think Lester is already out due to COVID, not an injury, but so I think Scherzer is going to try to take this rotation on his back a little bit and at least try to send him to the playoffs.
All right, so I'll give you my other one, and then again for time, I'll just do 2. I'm gonna skip the Dodgers because I don't think that's plausible. So we're just gonna skip that one. Ronald Acuna Jr. will not hit 20 home runs and will not steal 20 bases. Now, again, he can hit 20 home runs, but if he steals 20 bases, then I lose. But yeah, I don't think he's a 2020 guy, guys. No, it's hard to say.
Yeah, I don't see that happening either. He has 4 home runs and 2 stolen bases so far. I think just because he's on the top of that lineup, I think if anything, it would be stolen bases. I think, what did we say? He has about 60 in 3 years. So he averages about, although that's with a shortened season last year. So maybe he averages a little bit more technically, but
I can see him get 20 home runs, but
considering I had Ronald Acuna Jr. as my home run leader at the end of the season, I'm going to say no. I think he hits maybe about 40 or even more than 40 home runs. That's my guess.
He's a 2020 guy. I don't think he's a 30-30 guy, but he's probably a 35-25 guy, I think.
Yeah. Loose. Well, Dan, let's hear.
Yeah.
Let's go on to yours here.
I'll go no closer this year will reach 40 saves, which has not happened since 1982. So twice it happened, the year of the strike and then, the year of COVID in 2020. So, just watching games over the last 10 days, Melanson has like 4 or 5 saves from San Diego. So I get, and they're going to win games. Other than that, though, I mean, Liam Hendricks gets this big contract to be the closer, and he's implodes the one game. He wasn't even rolled out for another one of their opportunities. Like, I feel like the analytics is really taking over on this side of baseball more than anything is pitcher versus batter, pitcher versus who's coming up in the lineup. Stats are going behind it. Hey, these guys struggle with a lefty. These guys struggle with a righty. Who do we need in this situation right now? And I honestly feel like that closing, Mariano Rivera, Trevor Hoffman, John Smoltz, Eric Gagne, those guys are out the door. I really think it's, power arms or guys, in certain situational times that they're bringing guys in. So, I don't know. I just don't see anybody getting to 40 saves this year.
And I think you kind of hit the nail there. Is that due to there's no dominant closers out there really anymore that you consistently count on? I guess maybe one of the best closers you can think of is maybe a Josh Hader or maybe still a Chapman, but uh, Chapman gets injured and suspended for the occasional games. And then Hader already has 0, I believe, but they're going to also probably let Devin Williams get in there and throw some saves. You're right. There's not the dominant closer who you can go to every other day and say, chalk it up. That's the game. So I think that's definitely something that could happen, actually, is no closer gets to 40 because there's no dominant closers anymore. So what do you think, Joe?
No, yeah, just briefly, I totally agree. You just don't see those guys. You got to have winning, even like a Kenley Jansen in LA. He's not very reliable all the time. And that's the guys you don't want to depend on. And then somebody steps up as a setup man and he does the job. So, and sometimes you have 2 guys that might be doing the job. So I agree with Dan totally on that one. There's not a guy that's going to have 40 saves this season. No way.
So for those, I apologize. Dan had to skip out, so we won't get to say goodbye to him, but he appreciates everyone watching, and we loved having him on, but unfortunately, yeah, just skip out. So we'll just briefly finish up his overreactions here, Joe. The second overreaction Dan had was that Jacob deGrom, we talked a lot about Jacob deGrom in this episode, is going to win the NL Cy Young by winning less than 10 games. I guess this could be said based on and I know for those that don't follow the Timeout with Derek and Joe Twitter page, it was tweeted out during the game against the Marlins on Sunday or Saturday or Sunday when he pitched. Can they give him some sort of run support, Joe? It is absolutely ridiculous. He gave up 1 run, and I think it was a solo home run, and that was pretty much it. He ends up, I think he didn't lose, but obviously didn't get the win. Is that something that could happen? Do we think that if someone has less than 10 games, they can be a Cy Young winner?
I mean, it would be really hard. We'd have to go back into the annals of Major League Baseball to look at that stat. But, I mean, 10 maybe, right? 10 maybe, 11 probably, 9. That's like you probably are 9 and 20, like 9 and 18, 9 and 19. That's 10 games under 500 if you think about it. I just feel like it's not.
I would think he's not going to lose those games. I would think it's more he just gets no decisions. Maybe if he's a 9 and he would have to be a 9 and 9, 9 and 10 type.
They did actually change up the Mets lineup tonight. My dad just told me though it got postponed because of the weather. So I'm looking at the private doubleheader coming up here in the series or maybe next time. Derek, pretty interesting though. Conforto was hitting 6th tonight and Smith was hitting 3rd, so they really mixed it up. Yeah, you know what, Derek? No, no, I don't see it happening. Like that's.
I don't know if it's ever happened with 9 in a regular season, but I believe he won in 2018 when he was 10 and 9. But Joe, he had a 1.7 ERA. It could happen. It could happen. I would like to think the Mets are going to score more runs, so he wouldn't have to do that. But and then his third overreaction, Joe. Anthony Rizzo cost himself millions of dollars by declining a 5-year, $85 million extension this offseason, and he is 32 in August. I assume that would be because Rizzo is off to a very slow start, as is all that clan for in Chicago.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I said it. I think he was going to be hurt. Schwarber leaves. Kyle Schwarber leaves. It's going to hurt him. Contreras left another, or I'm sorry, Contreras is still there. Caratini left though. Yeah. They have very little pitching, and God forbid they give up and trade the righty Hendricks, right? I mean, they're just not as good as they were, Derek, and I think their run's coming to an end. Dan alluded to it earlier about the Brewers. I think the Cardinals and Brewers are definitely the beast of the NL Central. Let's see, but Rizzo's not the same player.
Yeah, so he's he's hitting 133 right now. So I think what Dan is probably implying is he should have taken that deal, that extension, and ran with it, because he's not going to get anything near that. And if he continues to hit like 133, that's definitely not going to happen. I am very interested to see what happens with that team. If they do sell off all those parts, do they extend some of them? Who do you decide to extend? That's kind of up in the air, but that'll do it for episode 38. MLB overreactions and a bunch of hot topics. We got to talk with Joe's cousin, Dan Villanti. We appreciate Dan coming on. Again, unfortunately, he had to drop out, so we had to pause it and let him head out. But we appreciate him coming on. And as always, Joe, final thoughts.
Yeah, and it hit me when you just said episode 38. So I'm not supposed to talk about future shows, but just saying next Monday would be our 40th show if we do one coming up here. So it could be our 40th show next Monday.
Technically, and I had all those half episodes in there because they were supposed to be half the time, but they never actually.
But if we're sitting down on Zoom, Derek, sitting down on Zoom, I count it as one.
So I've eliminated that. So we're kind of almost upwards of about 50 episodes if we're counting that. So
that's a big milestone. We're gonna have to have a party at 100. Well, anyway,
we'll do something. We'll try to do something special. Yeah.
But I have to say that this was a cool show. I'm excited to talk about baseball. I always say that every time. I don't just say it because it sounds good. I say it because I enjoy it, and it makes my day better. Like I had a dentist appointment earlier, Derek, and I got to the dentist appointment thinking about doing the show today. So, we'll be putting something together hopefully this weekend, and your trip to Florida is coming though. Derek is gonna be leaving us for a week, so but we got something in the works. Hopefully we'll be able to do a show. Sadly without him, but he'll be missed, and we'll get it back up after he comes back, and it's gonna be good stuff. So, but thanks Dan again for coming on. And hope everything's all right. He had to leave so abruptly, but hopefully he's good. And thanks again for listening, and share, like, comment. We always say it because we need it, and we're trying to build our show up, and we need all the support we can get. And we appreciate everybody out there listening and commenting.
As always, everyone, feel free to jump out on YouTube and watch all of our videos. We have previews of every division out there. If you're baseball fans, we have a couple top 5 lists. If you're a football fan, we have some top 5 lists that you can check out. It's not all old videos. It's stuff that's still kind of relevant. I remember when we did the top 5 sports movies. If you want to go check that one out, that was fun to create. Everything is out there on YouTube. Subscribe on YouTube and give us a follow. We appreciate that. We're out there on Twitter, all podcast platforms, Facebook group. Everything is Time Out with Derek and Joe, so you'll be able to find us. And don't forget to send us an email. We would love to get everyone more involved with the show and answer your personal emails. About questions for the show, feel free to, it doesn't matter the sport, throw them out there. Timeout Derek and Joe @gmail.com. As always, everyone, thank you for taking time out of your day to spend some time with us. Everyone stay safe and take care.